Should Scotland manager Steve Clarke get a new contract? He says the ball is in the SFA's court. 4 months on from the drama of defeating Denmark, he's announced his latest Scotland squad, full of familiar names with one new face. On loan winger Finley Curtis gets his first international call-up. And who's going to be the new boss of the Buddies? I'm David Currie, and today it's all about Scotland and St Mirren. Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Tuesday, the 17th of March. The morning after Steve Clarke announced his squad for the matches against Japan and Côte d'Ivoire.
And obviously a March squad where you're preparing for a World Cup in the summer is a little bit different. So some injuries, some boys right on the cusp of coming back from injury. Some players who I feel I need to have a look at.
Any more clues as to who's getting on the plane to America? Finley Curtis, the only first-time call-up.
He goes for a goal! What a finish! Outstanding goal from the 18-year-old Finley Curtis has come up with a massive moment.
Can the on-loan Killie winger force his way to the US of A? And Robbo's replacement? Who are the runners and riders for the St Mirren manager's job?
We know we're in a fight at the bottom end of the table. We have to now just try and put performances together and the results will come for it. But if boys individually and collectively play how we did today, we have more than enough.
We'll fill you in on everything you need to know.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
No first-time call-ups for the Scottish Football Podcast today. We are tried and tested. Telfer and Flynn. A view from the terrace presenter Craig Telfer and our both midfield maestro Ryan Flynniesta Flynn. I know he hates it when I say that. How do, gents? 4 months, as I mentioned there, from the win over Denmark, and about 3 months to go before the World Cup finals kick off. I just wonder how much thought, Craig, you've been given the World Cup, given the fascinating Scottish football season, and B, what's been happening in the world?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that primarily my focus has been domestically. You know what's going on. There's so many interesting storylines happening all the way across the SPFL. That really is captivating and that really is holding my attention. But it's this big, looming, exciting, enormous thing that is just on the horizon, and that's really, really exciting. The closer we get to the end of the season, the bigger this becomes. And while I'm really, really excited to see Scotland compete there, I think it's going to be a really great occasion. Yeah, this is sort of the geopolitics of the world at the moment doesn't make it as appealing as it should be. I think fair play to anyone that's going over to the United States. It doesn't feel. I'm not going to go myself. It doesn't feel quite right to go at the moment, but I do hope that Scotland get on well. I certainly will be watching all the games.
Ryan, are you fascinated, intrigued, looking forward to the World Cup, or is it kind of at the back of your mind?
Probably a little bit like Craig, but probably an excuse to get on YouTube and watch the highlights for the last game. I mean, what an excuse that is to watch that, and I kind of watch it with the radio commentary for Alistair Lamont when he's just going wild on that. I love that, so I probably watched that about 10 times now, but I'm definitely looking forward to it, but all my attention is domestically at the moment.
Right, well, let's turn our attention then to Scotland. Steve Clarke, on top of the shop, he says the Scottish FA haven't offered him a new contract yet, and he was saying yesterday in the presser that he thinks the chances of him staying on are now 50-50. Ryan, do you think, should the SFA have made him a new offer at one he can't refuse before the World Cup, or would you rather wait till after it?
No, for me, without a doubt. I mean, when in our wildest dreams could we have imagined getting to 3 out of the last 4 major competitions? I mean, Steve Clarke, I mean, no matter what happens, squads, substitutions, team lineups, the amount of questions that he gets thrown his way, and he's delivered time and time again. The job he's done is remarkable. Even when the squad comes out, there's still obviously question marks and people asking why certain players aren't involved, or could there be new blood into the squad. He delivers, and probably the biggest one I can remember is the last game. Thinking of Shanklin coming on early. He used to be like a 5-minute player. He was coming on early, produces. Tierney comes on the right-hand side, produces a wonder goal. If anyone knows best for the Scotland squad, it's Steve Clarke. 384 major competitions. I think he more than deserves a new contract.
Craig, he was saying it would depend, if he was made an offer, it would depend what clubs come in for him as well. Is that just trying to up the ante a wee bit?
Yeah, I suppose I'm trying to think the last time a Scotland manager used the position as Scotland manager to leverage a move for himself. That was Alex McLeish, who went to Birmingham City, and that certainly didn't go down well. But I agree. I'm listening to the stuff that Ryan's saying, and I'm nodding away. There he is. He's been an absolutely fabulous manager for Scotland. He has reinvigorated the Scottish national team for a long time. It was quite rote. It was something you had to do, was to go to Scotland games and watch Scotland. And now Scotland's the hottest ticket in town. Steve Clarke as the manager has given me some of the best nights of my life as a football supporter. When we beat Spain 2-0, that was incredible, absolutely incredible performance. When we beat Georgia 2-0, just the night when the heavens opened and it took 90 minutes to clear the pitch, incredible. And then the apex, beating Denmark, the best game of football I've ever been to. I don't think I'll ever go to a better game than that. And I think that Clarke, a lot of the time he does get a lot of critics. There's people who don't like him. They find his demeanour, they find him quite dour, they find him stubborn, they find his lack of willingness to blood new players and a frustration. But I think about majority of the calls that he's done since he's been the Scotland manager have been the correct ones. The big question mark is, if this is the third tournament he's taken us to, we need to see some kind of performance, because we haven't seen that. We weren't fantastic at Euro 2020, not good against Czech Republic and not good against Croatia. We kind of bombed a wee bit at the Euros in 2024, like desperately poor against Hungary in that final match when we had a shot of qualifying from the groups. So we need to see something from him here, but I would not be averse to keep him on. I think on the whole he's been an enormous net positive for Scotland.
Well, you say there, Craig, he's not a man that likes to blood new players, but there's one new face in the Scotland squad for these two international challenge matches, or World Cup warm-up matches, call them what you like, and it is Finley Curtis. He's only been at Kilmarnock 2 minutes and he's in the team, in the squad anyway.
I think it's a position. I think when you think of like Steve Clarke's squad building, when you've got 26 players, I think you can virtually guarantee 24 of the 26 players that are going to be taken. Even guys like Anthony Ralston, who I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but you knew he was going to be involved with a squad. So that leaves a couple of spaces open for some wildcard names. And I think that pace in wide areas is something we don't really have. I think that there's a real desperation for Ben Gannon-Doak to be fit and for him to be in action, because you can see when he's playing, a lot of the play goes through him. I've been at games at Hampden where it's basically the plan is get the ball to Ben Gannon-Doak and hope for something happens there. Because he's such a maverick and such a live wire player and someone who can make something happen out of nothing. But we do need that in other areas of the pitch. Pace, bit of flair, bit of creativity, and hopefully Finley Curtis can give us that. I think that's the area of the pitch where we can experiment and bring in some like wild card players. I think that he looked quite promising when he was breaking through at Rangers. Of course, scored against St Mirren, a goal, David, I'm sure you'll be all too familiar with, when they drew 1-1 earlier in the season. But I think at Kilmarnock, he's given a struggling team a wee bit of spark and a wee bit of pizzazz. And I think it might be similar to when we capped James Wilson. You're capping him, so you've got him and he can't go elsewhere. But nevertheless, I think that he has something to offer the team, and I think I'm keen to see what he's got to offer us against Japan.
Whatever happened to James Wilson, Ryan?
I know, loan down south, but yeah. Probably it's biggest, what you're saying there, how fortunes can change for any young professional. You're looking at James Wilson, how doesn't get a game, he's having to move on and try and get some football elsewhere and progress his career. But on the flip of that, look at Finley Curtis at Rangers, not really playing, gets a chance to go to Kilmarnock, who are struggling at the bottom league. It's not an easy challenge, goes in and he's thriving, he's enjoying it, and he gets that extra reward to get a call up to Steve Clarke's team. Probably a little bit like what Craig was saying. The squad is very much like probably Steve Clarke. It's very efficient, and then you do need that little bit of something different. And without Doak, that sort of that maverick factor, you don't have many ball carriers. You're probably relying on Ryan Christie or John McGinn to really get you up the pitch. But I think Finley Curtis is a different type of player. If he gets the ball, he's facing you up, he's direct, he's going to get at you. And that's the bit that I think appeases fans as well. When you're at the game, obviously Scotland are efficient. have produced results in big games, but you still need that one where it gets fans off the bums, off the seats. They're watching it, they're believing he gets the ball, he's the one that's going to make something happen. So that's probably the little X factor that Steve Clarke's added without Ben Doak being there. I'd imagine when it comes to fitness and the World Cup squad, if Ben Doak's fit, he'll definitely be in the squad.
I'm kind of scratching my head though, Craig, as to why Finley Curtis wasn't getting more time at Rangers, because any time I've seen him, I'm heartily impressed with him.
I think that's something that's endemic with both Rangers and Celtic in terms of bringing through young players. It's not something that either club traditionally does, and so these young players have to go on loan elsewhere. I think what you're seeing now at Rangers, the argument with Gassama not necessarily producing down the right flank, there's a clamour saying like, oh, why we kept this guy when we've sent Finley Curtis out on loan to Kilmarnock, who's doing well. But it just that tends to be the way at Rangers and Celtic. Young players tend not to get the chance. So very much he might be a useful option for Rangers in the future. But I think Curtis is all about, like, he's made it was a bold move to go to a team struggling at the bottom of the table, but it's a move that's paid off. You know, you're playing regular football, you understand the demands of what it's like to be in a struggling team where there's a lot of pressure where you're dealing with senior players who have perhaps got like mortgages, or a club, if they go down, they might have to make cuts elsewhere to accommodate dropping down a division. So that comes itself with a lot of pressure. And I think for a young man to have leave what's, I imagine, quite a comfortable environs at Auchenhowie to go to Kilmarnock, I think that's bold, and I think that's something that's obviously Steve Clarke mentioned at his press conference, something that he's liked about him. So I think it's just been a really positive move for Finley Curtis, and in time it might be a positive move for Rangers as well.
Well, we're having a wee shifty through the rest of the squad. We'll start at the goalkeeping position. Ryan, you're a wee bit concerned perhaps at the lack of depth there. No new faces there. Craig Gordon has got a shoulder injury, so he's out. But having a wee look there, does that fill you with confidence?
I think it's obviously a position that's... Craig Gordon wasn't getting many minutes when he had to step in and did a fantastic job beforehand. What I would say is Scott Bain is now playing week in, week out at Falkirk, playing well, performing well, teams performing well, playing with confidence. So he's probably the one that's going to challenge Angus Gunn. I think Steve Clarke does normally go with tried and tested, so it'll probably be between they two. I think if, as a Scotland fan, when it comes to the World Cup squad, I think we'll all deep down will be hoping for Craig Gordon to produce a recovery and get back fit. Whether that's possible or not is a different story, but I think deep down that's what his full focus will be, is getting himself as fit and as ready as possible to be called up to Steve Clarke's squad. And I think deep down he'll be the one that we'll be relying on when it comes to the World Cup. If it's not, it's going to be a tough decision, but I think it'll just be between Scott Bain and Angus Gunn for that number one spot. And I could probably see them getting a game each over these two games before the World Cup squad gets decided, because it's a position you want it to be settled. You want the squad to know, you want your defence to know who's actually going to be in goals. So yeah, it's definitely a tough decision for Steve Clarke moving forward in that goalkeeping area.
I was just about to say, Craig, that Scott Bain's good with his feet, and then I got a flashback to over the piece. You know, he is pretty good with the ball on the deck, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. He's moving from Celtic to Falkirk. That's a big move for someone his age. You could have just like easily seen out your career as Celtic's third choice goalkeeper, taking the money and just sitting in your big mansion with loads of beautiful women. You could have done something like that, or you could have made the decision to go and play football in the latter stage of your career at Falkirk. And I think that his general play really suits what John McGlynn's trying to do. And I think that, there's been a number of factors for Falkirk's brilliant season, but I think Bain's been one of them. I do think he has deserved his recall to Scotland. One mistake at the weekend, that's a rare lapse of concentration. Probably one of the few mistakes he has made this season, other than the fact that it's been flawless, and he has deserved his recall. But yeah, goalkeeper is a problem area. I was actually, when you're just talking about the goalkeepers there, I was thinking back to maybe like 10, 15 years ago when you had like Alan McGregor, Craig Gordon in his pomp, and David Marshall, three very good, very experienced goalkeepers, all playing at a decent level. And now it's just been a real struggle. There's some areas in the pitch that generally are a struggle for Scotland, and you would say it like goalkeeper, centre back, and centre forward. Your three of your main areas in the pitch. It'd be great if Scotland could move away from producing efficient midfielders and high calibre left backs and start focusing on goalkeepers and centre backs. But we are where we are at the moment.
Yeah, left back, no problem there. Right back, Ryan. Is this Nathan Patterson's time to shine, or Ross McCrory maybe?
I don't know. Craig's not built up well. I think we're just going to play a 10 midfielders, 10 centre midfielders. I think that's the way forward. Yeah, hopefully. He's obviously struggled with injuries. He's missed squads. I think for himself, he'll just looking to stay fit as long as possible. He's definitely a player with so much talent and quality that I think if he can just stay fit, he'll without a doubt produce. Disappointing, obviously, Hickey's produced he's came up with an injury. I'd imagine if he's fit, he's another one that will definitely be in the squad and has produced in big games. So yeah, it's probably Nathan Patterson's time to shine in that position. It's probably underwhelming when you sort of look at the squad overall. But I think deep down we just trust Steve Clarke to whoever it is that goes into that role. I mean, I'm thinking back to before when he had Considine and Hanlon and players come in from the dark and do produce. Declan Gallagher had 9 caps under Steve Clarke and produced every time at the national level. So whoever it is, full trust, because I think Steve Clarke makes it no grey areas. His tactical plan when it goes into games, they know exactly what they're doing as a team. And we do have some incredible midfielders in front of them that will probably help that back line and really protect them. And everyone covers every blade of grass, works hard for the team. So yeah, it's not like you're getting isolated at any point for the national team under a Steve Clarke tactical masterclass.
Well, yeah, we've got a couple of the big hitters, McTominay, McGinn, back playing. They're in the squad. Do you think he'll use them sparingly, given that they've just returned to action?
No, I think that we know that when these guys are available, these guys will play. That's certainly the assurances. I think that you can maybe quibble about who plays in goals, what the backline looks like, who plays up front, but I think in that sort of midfield 4 that gets played, you know who's going to play. You're going to have your sitters there are probably going to be your likes of like Billy Gilmour, obviously just such a good player for Scotland. Like just in terms of setting the tempo, holding on to the ball. And if I was with Steve Clarke, I would be starting Billy Gilmour every week. Maybe he can fade a wee bit. He's sometimes in 90 minutes, and sometimes off the ball work can be a bit lacking. But in terms of somebody who can just get you out of jams just by sheer wanting the ball and his mastery of holding on to it, he's a fabulous player. I'd want to see him there all the time. Ryan Christie has flourished at Bournemouth since moving to a deeper position. And then further forward, you've got John McGinn and Scott McTominay, superstars for Scotland. Even guys who, even when they're not having the best of matches, and there have been times certainly during that qualifying campaign when Scott McTominay would just jiff through games. Like he scored arguably the greatest goal in this country's history, that overhead kick against Denmark. That's the kind of quality that he can give you. And John McGinn as well, you know, like Ryan mentioned earlier, but being able to take you up the pitch, such an important attribute. Winning fouls in key areas, something that McGinn's great at. A number of times you see him just like roll a defender with that big booty of his and steam forward. It's so important to the way we play. So those guys, those 4 players are going to be absolutely vital to what we do. And I don't think you're really going to see... You might see some players like Lennon Miller, Lewis Ferguson get a shot later on, but I think those 4 players they're the guys that you're really pinning your hopes on.
The kind of heart swells with pride when we start talking about the midfield, Ryan.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's talent in abundance, and probably as players are getting older, and you're thinking, who's the next one up? Lennon Miller's such a talented player. That it's not just talent; it's know-how and how he plays. And when you're talking about the players, Craig, one of the big things, the mentality of them. When things get tough, they don't go hiding. Like John McGinn, Kenny McLean, when he comes into games. I mean, Steve Clarke's amount of times he's been questioned for playing Kenny McLean, and he's produced time and time again. So the mentality of the players in the middle of the park must drive the standards within that national squad. I think as a player as well, you're sort of players have been injured domestically. There's so much going on, and you're thinking, do we protect these players? Do we look after these players? But remember, these players have had that such a high, and then 4 months they've never seen each other. So that party, getting back together as a squad and being together and being on that pitch together, they'll love that. That's the bit that they'll be looking forward to. So no, the main guys will be playing, and I'm sure they'll be producing definitely in that middle of the park.
I'm just wondering, as mentioned there, one new face, Finley Curtis, in the squad for the first time. You'd be a bit disappointed there's not what we would call maybe left field inclusions, wild cards, any others. Barney Stewart's name cropping up in discussion.
It's like for instance, George Hurst. Like I've met George Hurst. George Hurst is a lovely guy, and he's super enthusiastic, and he's really taken to playing for Scotland. However, I've not yet necessarily seen anything from him on the pitch to suggest he's worth continuing with. Barney Stewart, meanwhile, I think they're similar kind of players in terms of like big, enthusiastic boys built like swimmers who can like put themselves around. And Stewart's in really prolific form at the moment. It's a really nice goal to equalise against Aberdeen at the weekend, and he definitely has something about him. And I was maybe a bit disappointed not to have seen him included, but I think that a lot of the time, if we're going right back to the top of the show, we know what we're going to get from Steve Clarke. So it's not a surprise to see Shea Adams, Lyndon Dykes, and then George Hurst and Tommy Conway. I think that Conway's a player that Clarke quite likes and I think wants to persist with and see what he's got to offer. It's just that I think that we as fans have really yet to see what likes of Hurst and Conway can really do for Scotland. But these international challenge matches, hopefully that's the perfect platform for them to showcase. But Barney Stewart would have been an interesting one. I think if he can continue his trajectory that he's shown at Falkirk this season, and he's really come on to a game, he's surpassed what my expectations for him. I think it might be a matter of time before he gets into the Scotland team. So there's time for him yet.
Where's the Motherwell boys? Where's the Hearts boys, Ryan?
It's a good question. I think that's what I was probably talking about at the start of the show. There's only 7 players based from playing in Scotland in this 26-man squad. Motherwell are flying, Hearts are flying. You've got Halkett, Milne. Anthony Ralston. There's obviously question marks. Doesn't play as much. You've got Paul McGinn, captain Motherwell. The clean sheet record. You've got Welsh there that's went alone from Celtic. He spoke about Finley Curtis going out and playing games and producing performances. They're all the question marks that can get thrown at Steve Clarke. But deep down, as I've said at the start of the show, he knows best. He knows that it's the togetherness, it's the morale within that squad. You're probably looking at Shanklin, who's been injured. He'll probably be on there. He's probably deserved his spot. He scores such a crucial goal. Does Steve Clarke look at that when it comes to getting your seat on the plane for the World Cup? I think I would have loved to have seen Barney Stewart just for the story. I think he has been a revelation. John McGlynn said it. He's been a joy. I feel like in games, I think he's could be the next Lyndon Dykes for us. Just that battering ran up top, causing problems, and then he's got that knack of just being in the right place at the right time. And people speak about, can you really coach that? It just seems that he gets himself between the width of the post and he's always there time and time again. I'd have loved to seen him. He's probably the one that I would have loved to seen keep the same squad, the 24-man squad, and just find a space for him just to see for these 2 friendlies and just see what happens. It's been a great story for him. I'd have loved that.
Okay, folks, so it's St Patrick's Day. Have a good one. But we are talking St Mirren. It's not been their day for a while. 3 months on, Ryan, from lifting the League Cup, and the pressure's on in Paisley. Only goal difference keeping them off the relegation playoff spot, and the Buddies are looking for a new boss. Have the Sainties been left in the lurch a wee bit?
It's been...
Take that as a yes.
No, it's been a painful watch at times. No, it's in a part at timing of going, it's not great. But then we were talking back in January that there's a possibility Stephen Robson was going. If there was so much noise, there was obviously an interest from his part. Are St Mirren ready to act and be ready to produce the next manager? That for me, it's got to be short term. It's got to have to keep your status of being a Scottish Premiership side. It's the performances probably since that date in the League Cup final winning team. It's not been good enough time and time again. I don't know. There's no obvious candidate.
Is that a
I don't know
Scottish
where
Sam
they're going to go.
Allardyce? Is that what you're looking for?
Sorry?
A Scottish Sam Allardyce kind of.
Yeah, pretty much. Sean Dyche, who's going to go in and produce? I just can't see who that obvious person is. I think it's what I would say is Keith Lasley has it was Tony Fitzpatrick at the time that employed Stephen Robinson, and obviously it was so positive on every front. The top 6 finishes, stability at the club, winning that cup. And Keith Lasley is now in that role with the board, and they have a big decision to make of going forward, because you don't want to be hiring, sacking managers left, right, and centre. So this and it's what are you looking for? Because they'll definitely be looking for a long term vision, but really it's so short term.
Speed is of the essence.
Sorry.
Speed is of the essence in terms of the appointment. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, but I think Craig McLeish is going to have this next game against Falkirk, and that's the bit that I'm probably surprised at. I think he spoke well, he's delivered well. I think he's had a reaction from the players, definitely implemented his game plan. But I just think there needs to be action. The players need to know what's going forward. It'd be interesting to see what Craig thinks of. Will it be they've went down the part-time route before with part-time managers, with previous manager Jim Goodwin and Jack Ross being part-time and then going into full-time. There's been a lot of part-time managers that have done well recently, Craig, and I don't know if you've got any names for me, but that'll be interesting to see who going forward. But the ones that the St Mirren guys that I was probably saying that know the club would be Stephen McGinn has been there recently. Could he go in? He knows the squad. He knows Craig McLeish. He knows how to maybe get a reaction and push him forward. Or a little bit further afield of Dermot O'Carroll, assistant manager at Sparta Prague, who was working under Stephen Robinson. Again, knows the squad, knows the players, majority of the players, and could he go and get a reaction? So they're in short term, react, produce, and then they're the guys that are long term to build the club and have a real affiliation with St Mirren.
Speaking to a few people, Craig, and around the club, and people with knowledge of Craig McLeish, and they speak very, very highly of him as a coach. He kind of has the jersey or the tracksuit, as it were. Do you think he can keep it?
Well, I thought that you want to talk about his first game against Rangers. Thought St Mirren were quite poor in the first half, but then when they realised that Rangers were there for the taking, they really stepped it up in the second half. A lot more adventurous, a lot more positive. And I think we want to see that kind of performance against Falkirk. It's a really interesting time for the club. You don't want to get in a position where, like, you look at Aberdeen, for instance, who just allowed the season to drift, and then all of a sudden you lose a big game against Dunfermline. It's panic stations, and then you go and get a manager who was probably available to you a couple of months ago. I think that was quite botched. St Mirren, there's still a lot to play for. You're in a relegation battle, but on top of that, you can do a cup double. It's not completely within the realms of possibility that St Mirren go and win the Scottish Cup. All 4 teams left in the competition can go there and win it. So you don't want to let this season drift. I think a decision has to be made quite quickly as to what they do. And whether or not that's Craig McLeish, I don't know. I was reading Pine Bovril, and one of the names, Stephen McGinn with Ryan Flynn as his assistant. That was a genuine shout there, Ryan. So good to know that people for your former club are still thinking of you. But it's something that we knew that Robinson was probably going to leave, like probably after winning that cup. The other teams would have been interested in. So some sort of succession plan should have been in place. A short list of names should have been drawn up. Whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But it's something that St Mirren will have to really make a move on, because time is of the essence.
What about Ryan Flynn with Stephen McGinn as his assistant?
Now we're talking, aren't we?
Yes.
I think a lot of managers might be from the outside looking at the job with a little bit of trepidation, but I can see, like, as you're saying, Craig McLeish so positive about the club, and then those that actually know the club, have been inside the club, know that it's such a good job to have, and it'll just be that bedding in period that it might be sore initially. Obviously, there's fixtures coming up, Falkirk away, the Aberdeen at home game is going to be massive. I mean, there's no build-up needed for that one, and then you've got 2 games against Celtic in the league and with the semi-final. So it could be tough to begin with, but long term, what a job it is. Stephen Robinson has left the club overall in a fantastic place. Obviously, players' are confidence low. That happens, form dips. But they're still like near the bottom of the table, but they're no threat of going automatically down and relegated. So it's still a massive job. And then they're obviously level points with Kilmarnock and can definitely stay up in the league. And as I said, it's a fantastic job for whoever manages to get it.
I was doing a wee bit of research, Craig, on Sunday at the Smiza just before the game, chatting to a few folk. Stephen McGinn's name was at the forefront. Neil Lennon was getting a mention. I'm not sure he'd be lured away from Dunfermline with a semi-final coming up.
Well, I mean, he leaves Dunfermline to have got a semi-final, to go to another semi-final with St Mirren, so regardless of where Neil Lennon's doing, he'll still be involved in the Scottish Cup semi-finals. Yeah, I think Lennon's an interesting one. I never was really convinced that he was the best fit for a team like Dunfermline. It always feels like Lennon, to me, has to be managing big players. I think he's quite good at like driving standards and kind of lets the coaches take care of the other stuff, and he's a sort of a more totemic presence rather than bringing through young players. But Lennon could be a shout. I've seen Gary Naismith's name mentioned in Dispatchy. I think that was something that Ryan alluded to earlier. Hopefully that's not the case, despite the fact that St Mirren do actually have a pretty good track record of taking managers from part-time football into full-time football, like Jim Goodwin, Jack Ross, Ian Murray, Danny Lennon. There's 4 good St Mirren managers. So now you don't want to go with Gary Naismith. Leave him at Steny. He's got unfinished business there. But I've seen names like Robbie Nielsen mentioned as well. So there's a number of managers, or whether or not Lasley wants to go and do something completely left field and go and get someone from the continent. But I think it's a good job to have. St Mirren seem like a good club to work at. It seems like a good environment with lots of like good people all pulling in the same direction. And on top of that as well, there's a really good youth academy there. I think that's maybe something that the next manager should be looking at. I think that was one of the criticisms of Stephen Robinson, was that he never used any of the players from the youth academy. It's a bit of a glass ceiling for a lot of the youngsters at the club there. So that might be someone we want to consider, someone who is good at bringing through youth players, because there's a wealth of talent there at the Smisa.
Tony Docherty, Ryan, I've seen him listed as the favourite for the job. How do you think that would go down?
It'd be interesting to see what the fans' reaction would be. It's also how he's feeling for how his seasons went and how his confidence is. You're talking about players' confidence being low, but as a coach, standing in front of players and trying to galvanise them after the sort of season you've had would be really difficult. Obviously, he's a well-experienced man within football. Maybe it's water off a duck's back and he can just move on and can produce. Deep down, I can't see that happening. But probably deep down, I can't see who they're actually going for or what direction the club are going for. We spoke about Aberdeen. What direction do they want to go in? It's probably a question for St Mirren to answer. I quite like what Craig was saying about the youth academy. The youth academy is really good. And they're into do well obviously in the Youth Cup and get far in the competitions, and it probably is one criticism of Stephen Robinson. It's probably been fair that hasn't produced more younger players or given more younger players minutes on the pitch, and they probably have to go elsewhere to produce. So no, it'd be interesting that whoever gets that job, it's definitely an avenue to use that. And Craig McLeish has worked with the academy players, so you might be seeing a few bloodied into the first team with the injury crisis that St Mirren have at the moment.
Yeah, certainly St Mirren living in interesting times, that's for sure. And that's just about it for today, folks. Many thanks to Craig and Ryan, most of all to you for listening. Remember, we're here with new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright, breezy and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. But from me, Craig and Ryan, enjoy your day, take care.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the shorter obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out a back line. Somebody's washing, you know.
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is, you know.
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.